My name's Laure, and I'm 46. Mark, my husband, and I have been together for a long time, building a life in a home that's filled with as much laughter as it is routine and my leader. I work in a fast-paced office environment, and honestly, the days can feel like a blur sometimes. When I got home that evening, I felt worn down to the bone. All I wanted was to soak in a hot bath, wash the day away, and sink into a quiet night at home. I went upstairs, filling the bath with steaming water that sent a mist up around me. Standing there, stripping off the layers of my workday, I paused for a moment in front of the mirror. Just me in my stockings and my usual, simple underwear. My mind wandered as I looked at myself in the mirror, trailing my fingers over the soft lace of the stockings, my hand brushing against my waist, then back again. I don't usually look that closely at myself, honestly, but something about the quiet was soothing, almost like I was reconnecting with myself, right there in that mirror. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting my hand linger on my hip, tracing the edge of my waistband, just reconnecting with myself. The lace felt delicate, grounding me in the moment. Peter is, well, this is my stepson. And then, just as I was lost in my own little moment, I heard the front door open. That night, I wasn't expecting him. The sight of him standing there in the doorway threw me off guard, just as much as it seemed to surprise him. I turned around, but I didn't reach for my robe, and he didn't close the door. For a second, we were frozen in this unexpected moment, staring at each other in a way that held more weight than either of us anticipated. It was as though neither of us could, or wanted to, look away. His eyes, wide and almost apologetic, trailed over me, taking in the sight. He didn't move, and neither did I. I could feel my heart race, something like anticipation stirring within me. The moment was thick, almost surreal, and I could see him taking it in. His gaze softened but intent. He swallowed as though processing the moment, then walked into the bathroom. Still, we didn't say a word. There was something in his eyes that felt like an unspoken question. I could feel the tension between us, something neither of us seemed willing to break. Slowly, he reached out, his hand grazing my leg just below the edge of my stocking, his touch warm and gentle. He knelt, his face level with me, and his hands moved with a tentative certainty, fingers brushing over the lace as he looked up at me, his expression unreadable. I knew this was something neither of us had planned or anticipated, but there was a pull between us, a silent, powerful current that made it feel inevitable, like the boundaries we'd set in the past had faded, leaving just this connection, raw and unguarded. Peter's gaze held mine as if he were silently waiting for a signal. It was like neither of us wanted to make the first move, but the moment was drawing us closer, almost as if we didn't have a choice. The air between us felt charged in a way I hadn't felt in years. He leaned in slowly, his eyes searching mine for any hesitation. And when his lips met mine, it was tentative at first, almost like he was giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't. I felt this warmth build inside me, and I leaned into him, our kiss deepening as I slid my fingers into his hair, feeling the softness, letting myself get lost in the moment. There was a mix of curiosity and intensity in the way we moved together, as if both of us were trying to memorize every small sensation. His hands traveled over my back, fingers tracing the line of my spine, sending shivers through me, making the moment feel both comforting and electric. I caught a glimpse of us in the mirror, the way we looked together, and it made me feel even more connected, like I was seeing this side of myself for the first time. The warmth of the steam surrounded us as we stood by the bath, the water pouring in and filling the room with a gentle hiss. As Peter leaned in, our lips met in a deeper, more deliberate kiss. It felt like time was slipping away, like everything around us had faded into this single moment. The steam wrapped around us, making the room feel like a world of its own, far removed from any other place, any other thought. His hands traveled across my back, slow and steady, tracing every curve as though he wanted to memorize each inch of skin. His touch was grounding, as if he was reassuring me that this moment, however fleeting, was something real. As his hands moved over my shoulders and down to my waist, there was a tenderness in his touch that felt both familiar and entirely new. He leaned in closer, his lips trailing down to my neck, planting soft, lingering kisses that sent waves of warmth through me. The sensation was both calming and electric, filling me with a sense of anticipation I hadn't felt in years. His fingers slid along my arms and over my collarbone, his touch both gentle and certain. Every kiss, every brush of his fingers, seemed to pull me further into this shared moment. After those moments by the bath, where the air felt almost like a quiet storm between us, I found myself leading Peter down the hallway to the bedroom. The house was unusually quiet. Even the usual sounds of the neighborhood seemed to fade into the background. We walked together, a kind of shared silence hanging between us, each step a quiet confirmation of what was happening, something unplanned yet somehow inevitable. The dim light cast a warm glow across the room, adding to the sense that we'd left reality behind and stepped into our own little world. When we reached the bed, I turned, feeling a surge of energy and boldness that felt so unlike me, but so right in that moment. Without a word, I gently pressed Peter back onto the bed, letting a smile pull at the corners of my mouth as he lay back, watching me with an intensity that felt almost like reverence. It was as if he was waiting, letting me take the lead, giving me the space to explore this side of myself, a side that hadn't come to the surface in years. I climbed onto the bed beside him, feeling the soft sheets beneath my hands, grounding me, steadying me. I leaned over him, feeling a kind of freedom that made every touch feel amplified, every glance feel like it was imbued with meaning. My lips found his jaw, and I felt the slight roughness of his stubble under my lips, a texture that added to the feeling of being truly present, alive in a way I hadn't felt in so long. I traced kisses from his jaw to his lips, savoring each moment, taking in every detail. My hands rested against his chest as he wrapped his arms around me, his fingers tracing gentle lines across my back, exploring, almost as if he were discovering the shape of me for the first time. His hands felt warm and steady, grounding me in the moment, in the here and now. When I lifted my head to look at him, I felt a rush of emotion that surprised me, a mix of gratitude, excitement, and a vulnerability I hadn't expected. His gaze held mine, and in that moment, I knew that whatever was happening, it was real and meaningful, something that went beyond the physical. My back arched instinctively, and I felt his hands trace down my sides, slipping over the fabric of my stockings, the sensation of his touch igniting a sense of closeness that left me breathless. I closed my eyes, leaning into his touch, letting go of all the thoughts that usually filled my mind. The obligations, the responsibilities, the routines. Here now there was just this moment, shared between us, unspoken but powerful. His hands moved slowly, almost reverently, along the edge of my stockings, fingers brushing over the delicate fabric in a way that felt both gentle and deliberate. I could feel the anticipation building, the sense of wanting to pause time, to stay in this moment a little longer. And then suddenly there was a noise, a loud, unmistakable ring at the door, pulling me out of the trance-like state that had settled over us. My heart leaped, and I quickly glanced toward the hallway, the spell broken by the sound that signaled an unexpected intrusion. My mind snapped back to reality, to the present, to the here and now, and a wave of realization washed over me. Mark. He shouldn't have been home for at least a few more hours, yet here he was, just outside the door, back early from work. In a rush, Peter and I moved, gathering ourselves with a sense of urgency that belied the calm we'd shared just moments before. We dressed in a silence that felt both understanding and a little surreal, each of us falling back into the roles we knew, as though slipping back into character in a play. I straightened my clothes, took a deep breath, and did my best to smooth my hair, my mind racing with thoughts, the echoes of the moment lingering just beneath the surface. By the time I opened the door, I had slipped back into my familiar role, greeting Mark with a smile that I hoped masked the whirlwind of emotions I felt inside. I welcomed him in, catching Peter's eye for just a brief moment, a shared understanding passing between us. We settled into the evening routine, dinner, conversation, the usual small talk. Each of us playing our parts as if nothing had happened, as if the quiet storm that had passed between us was nothing more than a dream. But I knew, deep down, that it was real, that it had changed something within me, something that couldn't simply be forgotten. And as I looked at us reflected in the mirror, I couldn't help but feel a deep connection to this side of myself, a reminder of something I'd forgotten I was capable of feeling. It was both exhilarating and grounding, like rediscovering a part of me I didn't know I'd missed. The next evening, I found myself lying alone in bed, staring up at the ceiling. My thoughts were a tangled mess, drifting between the events of the previous night and the familiarity of my surroundings. The air felt heavier somehow, carrying an unspoken tension. My mind kept returning to those moments with Peter. How unexpected, how intense they had been. It was a side of myself I'd almost forgotten I had, a version of me that felt more alive, less confined by the usual routine. Then I heard a gentle knock at my door. My heart skipped a beat, a mix of anticipation and hesitation flooding over me. For a brief moment, I thought of Mark, of everything that had built the foundation of my life. But before I could make sense of my thoughts, the door opened, and there was Peter standing in the soft light from the hallway, casting long shadows across the room. Peter stepped inside, his expression serious, a bit hesitant, but there was a glint of something unmistakable in his eyes, a confidence, a certainty that mirrored the pull I was feeling within myself. He looked at me with a kind of intensity that made my heart race. Yesterday was something else, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought for sure Mark would catch us. He moved closer, his presence filling the room, creating a sense of quiet urgency. I could feel the weight of his words, each one carrying an undercurrent of tension, a recognition of what had been left unfinished. Without another word, he reached down and took my hand, his fingers warm against mine. Slowly, almost reverently, he lifted my hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss there, lingering just a moment too long. The simplicity of the gesture held a gravity that words could not. In that instant, a flurry of emotions surged within me. Apprehension, excitement, a fierce longing, and the quiet fear of crossing a line that might change everything. His gaze met mine, and I could see the same turmoil reflected there. A mix of respect and desire, the understanding that we were standing on a threshold. In the silence, there was an unspoken question hanging in the air, a choice we both knew would mean something real, something we couldn't simply brush aside in the morning. Slowly, Peter sat beside me on the edge of the bed, the proximity between us making the air feel thick with anticipation. His hand brushed against my arm, the touch both tender and grounding, a small reminder of the connection we'd shared the night before. He didn't say anything more, but his presence spoke volumes, a desire for something deeper, a quiet hope that I was feeling the same way. As we shifted together, Peter's movements were both gentle and deliberate, each touch grounding me further in this moment that felt unlike anything I'd experienced before. With a quiet intensity, he turned me around so that my back rested against him, his warmth seeping through every layer of my awareness. I felt his strength and steadiness, the quiet power in his presence behind me. The realization that we were here together, in this moment that felt so improbable yet so natural, made my pulse race, a reminder that I was fully alive, fully present. He pressed closer, and I could feel the firmness of his body against mine, a sensation that was both grounding and overwhelming, as if his presence was drawing me even further into this shared space between us. His hands traced gentle, languid paths over my arms and shoulders, leaving a trail of warmth and reassurance, a touch that was both bold and deeply comforting. His fingers glided down, over my back, lingering there as if savoring the moment. There was something unhurried and reverent in the way he moved, as if he were taking his time, letting us both settle into this connection we'd found. I felt his hands explore the curve of my waist, each touch a reminder of the unspoken bond we were sharing. Every part of me felt heightened, each touch, each movement making me feel more aware, more alive than I had in ages. My mind spun, barely able to comprehend the fullness of what was unfolding, the mix of excitement and vulnerability flooding over me. I felt his hands on me, warm and steady, moving slowly along my arms, then around my waist, pulling me closer. His touch wasn't rushed or hesitant. It was firm, certain, as if he knew exactly what he was doing and what he wanted. I was hyper-aware of every place we touched, the heat of his chest against my back, the solid weight of his hands as they settled on my hips, fingers pressing just enough to keep me grounded in the moment. It was like I could feel his heartbeat, his steady breathing, almost as if it were sensing with mine. I could feel his warmth, his presence, the sheer reality of him there beside me. The thought that I was in control by my stepson exited me. It was insane. Peter's touch was thorough, like he was taking his time to learn every detail, every curve, as if it mattered to him to know me in this way. His hands traveled up and down my sides, fingers grazing my skin in a way that sent a rush through me, as if every nerve was lighting up, one by one. It felt surprisingly comfortable, natural, like we were simply picking up something that had been left waiting between us, unspoken but present. There was something in the way he looked at me, a kind of focus that was both steadying and exhilarating. His eyes held mine with a kind of quiet intensity that made me feel seen, like he was in this moment just as much as I was. He wasn't just going through the motions. Every touch, every movement felt purposeful. A kind of silent way of saying, I'm here and I want you to be here with me. Peter leaned in, pressing me gently but firmly into the bed, his presence grounding me even as my senses felt completely overwhelmed. The weight of his body was comforting, anchoring me in the moment. I could feel my own response growing, a kind of unfiltered reaction to the closeness, the warmth, the intensity that seemed to fill the space between us. Each sensation layered upon the last, until I felt like I was floating, fully alive, and fully present in a way that was both thrilling and deeply grounding. His hands continued to explore, moving along my back and shoulders, each touch as steady as it was tender. It was as though he understood exactly what I needed, sensing the depth of my trust and my vulnerability in this moment. I let myself relax into his touch, allowing each sensation to wash over me. The sounds I made were unintentional, honest, a reflection of just how deeply I was feeling this experience. His touch, his presence, created a rhythm that was both comforting and exhilarating, leaving me breathless as we moved together, lost in the simplicity and intensity of the connection we shared.